introduce you to Joe. If you will stand up, he's the gentleman who's going to do the. And I suspect that this is Robert. Is
Hey,
that
Robert.
correct, Robert?
Great.
Hi.
Robert?
Hi.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. He ran for the clerk, and he did not win. But I told him before the election was over that I thought that the clerk's position would be too confining for him. And it is now time to vote for the Secretary of State.
Amen.
So,
Yes.
there he is.
Thank
And
you.
as you see, he's recording us. And my assistant yesterday requested that. And I went, oh, I got the guy coming, I'm sure it's gonna happen. So, I wanna thank you all for your time and, your talents. Because on the right side here, this is John,
Wharton.
and he ran in a three-way race. And at the time, I'm sure the people that were voting in that did not realize that the one that they were up against was that her business was getting people elected. And she got herself elected. So,
It happens.
and John has been a rock in trying to make sure that we keep our republic. And so I want to make sure everybody knows.
Thank you.
Over here we have Gail. She worked with referendums. And Jim is someone who wants us all to win in November and to do everything we can to do that. And we have the gentleman who is starting his campaign for mayor. That is, this isn't coming up
Right
right
here,
now.
behind us?
But it's
Okay.
going to be something that is necessary to start early. And he's doing a great job on that.
And what's his name?
His name is Eddie Varela.
Okay.
Eddie Varela. And the gentleman is walking every day and talking to the people. So if he gets elected, I'm sure he'll have a good reputation of doing what the people need to do. And over there is for we the people of New Mexico, David. He is our guy that does the, okay, I have to go through with the file. On my age, the file is that long. And I will suddenly go, oh yes, our website. So if I'm stopping, it's not because I don't know what I'm doing, I'm going through that file and sooner or later, it's hard to find. Trying to find the word. So, we need to get started. So we have our presentation, but I want to give you a new way of thinking from we the people of New Mexico, and that is there should be not just the questions, but there should be the answers. And we don't spend too much time on what's wrong and the questions, and not enough time on the answers. And you all at the start, we hope will be the answers coming up in the election in November. Now, the job, what is the job? See this? I'm going to wear this shirt in every political place that I end up in because this is your success. You vote. You are going to change things. If you don't vote, you won't change it. And I'm going to report that in November, the election for the city, mostly,
Food allergy to onions, so let's start with that.
we had a 22 point something turnout registration for the election. 22 point whatever it was. For the number of people that are registered to vote. So that leaves how many that did not go and vote? Because that was Republican, it was Democrat, it was declined to state, all of it. Well, I'm here to tell you, in this last primary election, we had the same turnout. 22 point something. We're not making progress, do you guys? And I'm asking that those who believe in the Constitution, that the Constitution requires you to vote. It requires you to vote, because if you don't vote and get what you need, then the next thing is the gun. And it's a lot easier to use the vote. And that's our attempt. We'll have one of these every week in order to educate the people that they're not voting. And we hope that come November, we'll have a lot more people that understand their job. There's people trying to say we've got to change the Constitution. We did change it. We changed it wrong. We need to change it back. And we would be a lot better off. And by the way, Obama was the first one to recognize that term limits does not work. All right, so right now, we're going to turn this over to, you got to bring this.
He's just.
Well, I've got a couple of things I can say, and you can shoot a little bit longer. I do have things over on the table for you to pick up. I brought in pocket constitutions. I've got 20 of them, I believe. Anybody who would like to have a pocket constitution, spread it out every once in a while and show people, they are free. And I do have the cards for We the People of Mexico, which is our organization, putting this on, posting. And then there's the card that was for the referendum. It got used for the referendum. It wasn't for the referendum. It was a card for people to recognize that there were these bills that were being passed in the legislature. They are in effect. They're being used today. They're at the top of that card, and then the rest of the card is all the other places we have to fix. So take those with you. And then there's a page that tells you what the total registration is in the state of New Mexico. And that's Republicans and Democrats and everybody else. And so you can look and see how that is distributed. You'll have that information, and it is current. This is as of the end of May. It comes every month, and we pick it up as We the People, so we know where the numbers are. Numbers are very important now. And then the other one was distributed to us as information that you might like to have. And it's all about the numbers. I think they're using something like 20 million like that of people who are illegal immigrants. And it's a study in what happens economically. And I really tell everyone that you need to pick that up and really study that and help pass the word that it's what we need to do and why we need to do it. And it won't have anything to do with politics. It will have to do with your pocket and our reason, what's liberty. Most people want to call it freedom, but I want to call it liberty. And that will be that. So, I think he's had a little more time to have his food.
No, I'm ready.
And it seems like David over there, our guy, is going to help this guy, and we'll have a wonderful presentation, and I'm going to sit down. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Madeline, for the invite, and thank you all for coming for one thing. You're going to see things today that you won't see anywhere else. We have such a sorry record for crime in Albuquerque that it's we're a national disgrace, and you won't see it in the paper, even though they tend to publish what leads, right? But this is so bad that they're not reporting the way it's been going. Introduce myself. I worked at Sandia National Labs for years. I retired as director of advanced development of nuclear weapons, so I had a very responsible job. But at the same time, in parallel, I worked for the police department as a reserve officer, where I was a patrolman second class, which is the only one I outranked was the dog. But I enjoyed it. I did it for 36 years. I worked in every area of command, every shift. And I'm glad to see some young voters here.
The most important person on the planet is a mom.
Well, thank you. That makes me feel good.
I've been one, I know.
Is that what you say?
All right. In 2018, I was still on the police department. In fact, I was on until February of 2020. I was so disturbed at the situation in Albuquerque, and I was familiar with the entire criminal justice system because I had to appear in court. I had to actually enforce the law, and I spent many trips to the Metropolitan Detention Center, which are the 3 legs around here. And we're in sad shape in every leg of the criminal justice system here. So it's not just one thing. And we've been bad for a long time, but we really got bad in roughly 2013, 2014. And that's when bail reform and prison reform became a national kind of flavor of the month of management. And the overriding philosophy there is that we're just warehousing good people in jail. There's no such thing as a bad boy, it's a bad society. Well, and I know the mayor believes that. And actually, the mayor and I know each other, and I said, Tim, you're wrong. He's not a bad man. He's not a stupid man, but he's wrong on the criminal on protection of the public. I mean, government's #1 job is to protect the citizens, and it's very simple. This is not a complex thing. And law enforcement's job is, guess what? How about enforcing the law? And we have failed mightily in that, as we'll see. So. Let's see. Well, anyway, the book is a play on words. We have to lose, right? And why do we have to lose? We have crime, lots of it, and it's bad. I mentioned here, we're in the top 10 in all categories. We're actually in the top 5 in all categories now. And my friends at the FBI think that we are the most dangerous big city west of the Mississippi. Now, that includes a lot of crappy places. And Oakland is one of them. And Oakland is trying to recall their mayor now for malfeasance and dereliction of duty. And we're worse than Oakland. But we don't publicize our problem. Oakland is trying to get well. I'm not sure what we're doing. So we'll see a little bit more on that. But I didn't want to lose. I always put it right up front as a P.T. Barnum approach. Tell them what you're going to tell them. Tell them, and then tell them what you told me. And so, the answer to me is simple: enforce the law, pursue, arrest, prosecute, and incarcerate where necessary. And all of us here whether you're in law enforcement or any part of the criminal justice system, need to be aware of the issues and then be aware of our candidates standing on the issues and then vote accordingly. You know, the city and the state and the county work for us, but if we don't pay attention, they're not working for us, they're working for them. And I do have a website here, the ABQ Crime Blues, that actually has the entire book on it in the 2022 update, and also has an older version of this presentation. So if you see something you want to reference, it's there. Okay, next one. Okay, this, you know, I don't want to bore everybody with statistics. Somebody says, well, that's math. But these red bars here are the crime rate per 100,000 people. So it's a per capita violent crime rate. And so here's old Albuquerque, and if you went 22, 23, it would continue on the same path as you see. Here is the national violent crime rate. We are 3.5 times the national crime rate for violent crime. I mean, it's unbelievable. You know, when you hear the mayor saying, well, everybody, and the chief saying, well, everybody's having problems. Well, they have problems. Yes, that's true. And there's been, but their problems are 1, 2, 3% problems. Ours are hundreds of percent. I mean, this is, you won't see this chart anyplace else. Those are the FBI statistics. So if anybody wants to argue with them, I'm prepared to take my statistics to anybody. And it's a lot of digging, and unfortunately the FBI has changed their way of keeping score that you also wonder about the motivation for that. But anyway, so here's New Mexico, blue, mostly driven by Albuquerque, as you might guess. But we have, just for reference though, 2 of the safest places in New Mexico are Rio Rancho and Corrales, which are right next to the worst place in New Mexico. So what's the difference? So we'll chat a little bit about that. Next one. Okay, this is property crime. And you see again, nationwide, it's been going down a little. This needs to be updated. Part of COVID came in here and also drove it down. Property crime, there's more people home. Is one thing. But then here's good old Albuquerque. We have made some progress there, and I want to celebrate that, but it's not like we haven't made some progress. How much of that is they're not answering calls, people aren't calling in, they don't expect service anymore, unfortunately. And we're still 2.5 times the national average, and that's continuing on. Next. Okay. This I'm using APD's own statistics, which are not readily out there in front of us. They're hard to find. But here's crime. Here's the new FBI deals. Crimes against persons. Well, that includes homicides, aggravated assault. That's where you use a weapon involved. Robbery, which again, where you use a weapon involved to separate somebody from their property. Rape and arson is a new category. Well, here we are. Here's 2018. Here's 2023. They've made progress. 3%. Is that progress? That's in the noise. That's no progress.
Third of the quarter in.
Well, that was the end of crime.
Something, Jim.
Say anything good about it, don't say anything.
Make sure you direct your friends and family to go vote.
Speaking of voting, I was going through the state data, and there's 84,000 registered Republicans that have not voted in the last 20 years.
Oh my God.
84,000. Now that's the whole state, but that's a lot of people that are sitting on the couches.
And they're still living and they're still
Yeah,
working
well,
or doing whatever.
God knows what the
Yeah, we don't
Secretary of
check that.
State's doing. But
They could have been relocated or no longer with us? or-
they show active.
Oh, they show active, okay.
How can they show active if they haven't voted?
Well, that's the other problem. So the rules are, If you have not participated in the last 2 presidential elections, you're supposed to be made inactive. The Secretary of State doesn't follow any laws.
No, she hasn't.
Yeah, no, she's
Never.
she doesn't answer any of the IPRAs. She runs a clock out on everything. She's an evil woman. And now we've just had a great big change with Emerge really making big strides this time around. You got it back.
Well, it was a very simple fix that put him out. But anyway, so if 2023 from 2018, and actually if we go back 2017, 2016, 2015, same thing. No change. So no matter what anybody claims how much progress they've made, it's essentially zero progress in violent crime. And you'll see where we rank nationally. Crimes against property, we actually have made a little progress there, but it's cutting along at the same level. Yes, ma'am.
Are children included in that crimes against person? Child trafficking, child abuse?
There is, let's see, it's a violent crime. I would say if there's an assault involved there, or that's a good question. There's another. Any person that's hurt or there's forced use on should be in here. So whether they're children or adults. Crimes against property, well, they made an 18% change, but then in the last few years, no change. And next, this is an interesting category that's new with the FBI. It's called crimes against society, and that includes crimes like loitering, vandalism, all drug crimes. Even though there may not be a victim per se, and you can see what Ed's doing. It's huge. Next. Okay. They always say, we hear a lot, and in fact, that everybody's having trouble. Well, this is a comparison of cities around us. And for instance, the worst in the country for violent crime are Detroit and Memphis. And hopefully we never catch them. They're twice as bad as everybody else. They are terrible. Baltimore, well, we're in there with Baltimore and Philadelphia, Atlanta. Here's Albuquerque. This is a violent crime index. This is what you're looking at those bars before. You see here 2017, 1369, 2018, 1365. Essentially no change, as that other chart showed. No change in violent crime. And here's the murder capital of the United States, Chicago. We're about 40% worse than they are. Unbelievable.
You don't even hear it. You hear about Chicago every day. You never hear about Albuquerque.
They have an interesting website that somebody put up in Chicago. It's called jackass.com. And they sell t-shirts of the imprinted bodies on the ground and all that. And they make a joke out of it, but shot in the ass statistics say, yeah, it's they make a joke out of it because it is a joke, that they're. But okay, so here's Phoenix, about half of Albuquerque. Here's Los Angeles, half of Albuquerque. Amarillo, about half of Albuquerque. Colorado Springs, maybe a third of Albuquerque. Here's the U.S. average. You can see, like we talked about before, they're 1/3 to 1/4 of our violent crime national average. El Paso. El Paso is very similar to Albuquerque, and it has a similar demographics, similar income, has 2 major drug routes going through the city. It's inches from the border, of course. So how many think El Paso would be worse than we are?
It should be, because it's right on the border.
Yeah, well look what it is. It's better than the national average.
Huh.
What's the difference between El Paso and Albuquerque?
Law enforcement.
One's in Texas, one's in Mexico. In Texas, they enforce the law. If you're going to rob a service station, you don't drive over to Texas and do it. You do it here. We had a guy, I don't know if you'll recall, is about 5 or 6 years ago, a bank robber here that was driving up from El Paso every weekend to rob banks there. He didn't rob them, and he went out of his way, but he knew he's safe. Scottsdale is about 10% found for this crime. Now, it's not very comparable because the demographics are a lot different and all that. And again, Arizona, for the most part, enforces the law, but they're having their problems too. Their police department is also under investigation for excessive use of force and wrongful death. Okay, next one. Oh, this is, if you don't remember anything, remember this one. Here is the population of the Metropolitan Detention Center. So you can see it was hovering around 3,000 here in 2010. It stayed the same until about 2013. And then bail reform and prison reform. And we just started into that jail. Here we go. And here we are today. That's 21, but 22, 23. Yesterday, the population of the jail was 1,500. At one time, in 2013, we had over 5,000 people incarcerated in Albuquerque. We had about, you can see, 2,700 or so at the Metropolitan Detention Center. We had another 800 in the Honor Farm. We had the overflow facility, which was another 600. We had a lot of people in jail, and crime was half what it is today. In fact, you don't have to be a mathematician to figure out this is almost perfect correlation. Mathematicians would call this 94% correlation.
Right.
You start, what's the problem? What causes crime? Well, I
Criminals.
reference Richard Nixon as a comedian, but he once said, the cause of crime is criminals. Yeah, that's not that complex, really. And if you have more criminals on this, where do you think the other 3,500 or so criminals are that are not in jail now? They're out here. They're working on your catalytic converter. They're robbing your house. So that is irrefutable evidence. That's the FBI stats versus the MDC incarceration. They have a dashboard, they call it, where you can find out if your loved one's in there and they can communicate with them and how many people are in jail. Very interesting. Okay, next. Okay, why aren't criminals in jail? I mentioned we're not arresting, we're not prosecuting, and we're not putting them in jail. That's very simple. And this is not a complex problem. Keep going. Okay, why aren't we arresting? Well, between 2010 and 2015, the city of Albuquerque paid out about $40 million for wrongful death and excessive use of force. Well, nobody wants that, and that was considered to be excessive, which it is. In fact, we're number one in the country for killing civilians right now. Albuquerque is a rough place.
Justified or non-justified? Justified or non-justified?
Well, nobody, there's only been 2 officers tried for that's John Boyd is. By the way, that happened after the Department of Justice consent decree, so we're already in due to way before John Boyd. Yeah, I was familiar with the John Boyd deal. My boss was the first officer said, well, John Boyd is a big guy. And my boss was a 5'4" guy that was way over, was a big. I'm not saying that might makes right, but in a lot of times it does. You've got to look at the size disparity. If you're going to enforce the law, you better be able to back it up and be able to do it.
What is the percentage of officer-involved shootings compared to other states?
Right now, we're in the per capita again. We're the worst in the country. And we were then, we are now. And in fact, this consent decree was supposed to bring the police department under control because unfortunately, our way of dealing with the mentally ill was the shooter. And that's obviously needed some work. And so we spent a lot of time. I went through 80 hours of dealing with the mentally ill that all officers had to take. And it was very good training, I thought it was some of the best in the country. But we have a lot of problems here. And as the crime has stayed the same, violent crime has stayed the same with the same number of criminals, we're still ending up having to shoot a bunch of them. Now they just aren't, we're doing a better job with the mentally ill. But Unfortunately, we let them run the street. Oh, they're wow, that looks good. Watch that cord. Okay. So, what happened with that?